This is an encore presentation of the Peter Silverman Show on News Talk 1010 CFRB.
If you have any questions about condominiums, welcome back to the Silverman Show. Give us a call. I have an expert with me, a lawyer, Maria Dimakas of Fine and Deal, who deal with condominiums. And we were talking about you buy a house and you don't notice as much that you're paying maintenance all the way down the line.
That's right.
Right? But in a condominium, you get that bill every month. And it's for some reason, it seems tougher to take. But irrespective, you're going to have to pay for something.
You either pay for it as you go or you pay for it at some point down the line. That's the only difference between condo ownership and owning a single-family residence.
When the responsibilities of the board versus the responsibilities of the owners, you mentioned the responsibility of an owner. What's the responsibility of an owner? I mean, you're buying into a community in the first place. So you've got 100-odd people, 200 people, 300 people, maybe 1,000 people.
In some cases, yeah.
In some cases, in a large building, a community, a viable, hopefully viable community.
That's right.
So what perhaps makes it different, or maybe not so different, is that you got to get along.
You do, or at least you have to accept the fact that there are going to be differences and that one person's preference will not necessarily be accepted over another person's preference, and that you can't please everyone. When you're buying into a condo community, you're buying into a lifestyle. You don't have free reign as you would over a house. You have your expectations should be just that, expectations, but they have to be kept in check. And there are boards of directors, and all boards of directors out there are volunteers. They volunteer their time. You do, Peter, and you know how long that takes, and you know the stress that comes along with it, and you know the obligations that come along with it. But directors are volunteers. They take the time out of their lives to essentially maintain their investment and the investment of every other owner in that building. I mean, you're managing millions and millions of dollars worth of property. And I think there's a disjoint between the understanding of owners and what the board does. And that's what causes a lot of the political problems in condos. When owners don't really understand what a board does and the challenges a board faces and how often and how much time it takes for a board to resolve some very basic but very time-consuming issues, like major capital projects, like managing people's expectations. People have to understand that they will not get everything that they want. It's unfortunate, but that's part of condo living.
Okay. One of the things you mentioned is that there's a lot of buildings in Toronto who are 25 or 30 years old. You have a lot of people who bought in because it was a way you could get a roof over your head at a reasonable price as opposed to buying a detached or semi-detached home or whatever, or a home in the suburbs. Now, 25 years later, people's incomes might not have risen in the same direction as the expense of running that building. Are we heading down a road where we're going to have lots of buildings falling apart and people not able to pay for them, and we're going to have people out on the street and buildings collapsing?
In some cases, that's already happening. And in other cases where along the way people have not contributed what they ought to have contributed to maintain that building, you're going to find more and more of those. And there's pockets all across the city and in the GTA where that's already happening. It's poor judgment on those that were responsible for managing. And I don't speak of the property managers. I speak of the boards, because at the end of the day, it is their responsibility to direct and make decisions about key things such as major capital projects and maintaining the building, maintaining the community. That's key. When you maintain a community, you maintain people's expectations, and you maintain a certain standard of living for everyone. And unfortunately, people who can't afford to live in certain communities perhaps should not. It's not perhaps the best thing to say. But if you can't afford to live someplace, you shouldn't be living there. Shouldn't be living there. Okay. It's not fair.
May I offer you a tent on the gardener?
No, there are options available. The good thing about the condominium community is that you have a range of standards. You have a range of buildings, and there are, on the one side of the spectrum, the buildings that are small, not much in terms of amenities. There's not much to maintain other than the physical structure. And, in most cases, there are townhouse condominiums as well, where common expenses are relatively low. And then the other end of the spectrum, you have the very high-end buildings, and there's anything in between. There's choice. The good thing about Toronto and the good thing about Ontario and condominiums in Ontario is that there is options.
Okay, let me ask you this, and it's we're going in a circle here. If you were buying a condo You're out there in the market. What would you start looking for before you planked your money down?
Well, there's a big difference. Am I going to be buying a brand new condo right from construction or perhaps resale? To me, they're two different things. Both have their respective challenges and their benefits as well. Obviously, when you're buying a brand new condominium unit, everything is shiny. It's all new. You're walking in there with a very excited attitude to see where your community is going to go. I would probably do some research on a developer, find out what their history is with maintaining or dealing with very big things like deficiencies.
Okay.
And you're giving me the finger, Peter.
Oh, dear. I don't think so. What I'm saying is that we have to go to a break here. Oh, what will our listeners think of that?
This has been an encore presentation of The Peter Silverman Show on News Talk 1010 CFRB.